Good afternoon and welcome to Shifting Sands, New Opportunities for Family-Run Tourism Businesses. My name is Karen Clements and I'm going to be your in-person host for this session and to help knit together the physical and online into a seamless whole. Today we're going to look at a sector that was devastated by COVID, but focus actually on the opportunities facing particularly family-run businesses in that sector as they diversify and make the transition to green and digital. We are joined both in the room and online by 5 experts who are all representative of the tourism ecosystem. And I'm going to hand over to our moderator, Co Koens, who's Professor of New Urban Tourism Inland in Holland University of Applied Sciences in Rotterdam, who'll be your moderator for this session. Co, over to you.
Thank you very much, Karen. I do not do too much with terrorism, luckily. No, thanks everybody here also for joining us, both online and like in the room. As Karen already said, family businesses have been hit particularly hard by the pandemic, and that is a shame because they are the backbone of tourism. And when they stop being active, the overarching offering of products may get less. And that would really be sad. At the same time, what this session is about, it's not about doom and gloom, it's about a more hopeful perspective. Family businesses are entrepreneurial breeding grounds, and exciting things can and do happen. So this session is about exploring how can we maximize this potential of small family-run businesses, and particularly as a central part of a more sustainable tourism ecosystem all across Europe. What we'll do is we'll look at the role family businesses can play in coming to such a sustainable tourism ecosystem, innovative ways about thinking about small business development for family-run businesses in a post-pandemic landscape, as well as the possibilities of new technology or data and how we can link that up with resilience to come to this more green, digital and resilient tourism industry. Now, that's a lot we only have 33 minutes. More or less, because I've been asked to try to get us back on track a little bit with the program. We're running a little bit behind. So we need good speakers. We need good speakers who will maintain and stick to their time limit, but I'm certain we have them here. With 4 speakers, start with Christiane Mutka, who will discuss the transition of the tourism ecosystem that is needed due to the changing trends in tourism demand. And she'll also highlight the importance of the participation of the SMEs to come to these joint objectives of green and digital transitions. And then we have 2 speakers who are physically present in Portoroz. The first is Sotiris Kopatsaris, sorry for that, of Future Hotels, who will basically share his insights on how to revolutionize hotel operations and at the same time becoming more sustainable and not losing human touch. And we have Tommy Ilias of Artur, who focuses on exciting new ways of measuring and modeling tourism impacts, also to support tourism to become more sustainable. And then finally, we have Jesus Casado, online, Secretary General of European Family Businesses, will discuss how family businesses can manage the challenges of the COVID-19 crisis and ways forward. But as promised, let's start with Christiane Mutka, Policy Officer at DG Growth, where she now works on developing a transition pathway for a more resilient, innovative and sustainable tourism ecosystem. That's a big thing, because particularly tourism is the first sector of many for which such a transition pathway is being set out. So what you're about to hear is cutting edge, and I'm certain it's going to be very interesting. Kirsty, can I ask you to take the stage?
Thank you, Co. So let's see if I manage to take over the slides. Yes, I do. So thank you for the introduction. Thank you for the organizers for the possibility to speak in this event, and good afternoon for everyone. I will start by giving you a few words about the last summer season. If I manage to change the slide, let's see. Now, okay.
We lost internet connection. Karen. She's out of the Zoom.
Just Kirsty. Just Kirsty. So, as you might have gathered, we've just lost our Zoom friends. We're working hard to get them back on. We'll wait for 2 minutes, and if not, then I think we'll just carry on with our lovely speakers here because they've got lots to tell us anyway, and we'll be able to make some progress that way. So bear with us just for 1 or 2 minutes, please. Thank you so much. Thank you for your patience, everybody. So I understand that the hotel internet has gone down. Nevertheless, it doesn't matter because we have some beautiful live stories here in this room. So we're going to carry on, and I'm going to ask Sotiri's if he would like to take the stage and talk to us about his extraordinary journey and in his family-run business.
Thank you very much for the invitation. First of all, it's an honor to be here at the SME Assembly, sharing with you what we've learned from the pandemic, but also what we've learned from our digital transformation and digitalization journey. So, the pandemic, as we call the session, it's Shifting Sands is a perfect title for what is happening, really. The pandemic has left behind a very volatile, dangerous, scary landscape for businesses, and not just for SMEs, but also for hotels, even more so for hotels. If you think about it, having a hotel business is actually a very bad business to start with. You have operational costs, you have guests complaining, you have seasonality, you've got occupancy rates going up and down. And you've got tremendous energy costs, you've got tremendous labor costs, because hospitality is about people. You cannot replace people with robots, so you have to have people. So you start with a very complicated and very weird and difficult business model to begin with. And obviously that affects our operations in a very meaningful way. We have to cut costs, but also maintain the guest experience, and there's also a lot of prioritization that happens there. So in this new time that we have now in front of us, hotel profitability has completely evaporated in the last 2 years. You cannot believe what has happened to hotels in the last 2 years. Without state support, we would have no hotels to talk about today, around Europe and I think around the world. So let's ask this question. What can hotels do in this new reality to drive profitability and to become successful again? And let's also ask this question, not just about hotels, but about every small, medium enterprise. Let's pause there for a second and go back a few years, forget about what I just told you, and do a recap. When I'm 27 years old. About 4 years ago, I decided to come back from the UK. I was studying in Sheffield, then I went to London, did mechanical engineering, then
recording in progress.
Management.
Okay,
And,
thank you for that.
They're back? I think they're back. Okay, so I came back to the family business. It wasn't an original plan I intended to do. But at some point, I realized from an engineering background and from a management background that this was the place to have the maximum impact. And I think that many small enterprise owners and family businesses can realize what sort of impact they can do in their business if they go and be very hands-on. So without being a hotelier, without having anything to do with that background, as an engineer, I entered the family business in 2017. And over that time, when I entered the business, I was shocked by the lack of technology the hospitality industry is faced with. Absolutely zero technology. We're talking about very old forms that you have to fill out, paperwork, data silos that they don't communicate with each other, no insights about anything, no way to track your performance, no KPIs, just no digitalization whatsoever. And I had just come from an environment, I was at Imperial College, where they were just studying the digitalization rate across all industries, and you see hospitality is at the bottom of this run. And I thought, it can't be like that. Imagine the impact we can have on this property if we turn it around and we implement all this digitalization. So that's what I did. I did a journey across all Europe. I went from Sweden, partners like Atomize and BookBoost, to all the way to Barcelona with partners like the Hotels Network. And I created a sort of universe of different solutions that we put and integrated onto the property to make it digital and to make it cutting edge. And we changed the experience. We got rid of bulky computers. Everything runs on an iPad now for our staff. So our receptionists are not anymore anchored to the reception desk, but they roam around. We call them butlers now. So if you want to check out, I can come to you and do the checkout to you instead of you coming to me to do the checkout. So we facilitate that real engagement. We have gotten rid of all the paperwork. The guests can complete the check-in on the mobile phone and get immediate access to the room using a smartwatch or the mobile watch or the mobile phone without having ever to go to the reception. If they do not wish to go to the reception, we give this optional ability for the guests to do whatever they wish. We got rid of paper directories. Everybody can order through a tablet, which has made, by the way, room service skyrocket because people would likely tap on 5 burgers on the tablet and order it easily than having to call the receptionist and tell them, I want to eat 5 burgers at 12 midnight. That's not very good for conversion, is it? So we implemented that technology, and that happened all before COVID, by the way. That's the interesting thing. We did it way before COVID had even become a reality. And we saw tremendous return on investment on this technology. We saw people loving it, using it more. We had happier guests, we had lower costs. And with the help of our friends in Sweden and also in London, we used Atomize. And Atomize is a software that uses artificial intelligence to automatically reprice your room inventory every time you sell a room. So if you book a room at my hotel, then the next room will be automatically recalculated, judging the market conditions, the revenue data, the historical data of the property, and having the most competitive price at all times. This was only doable by airlines in the past, or very large corporations, but now it's also doable by very small hotels around the world. So we saw tremendous return on investment, and we had tremendous gains from all that implementation of technology. And at some point we thought, what's next? What should we do next? And the next major trend we saw amongst guests was sustainability. People want to travel sustainably. And we saw that even before the pandemic, and the pandemic has accelerated that trend. So we implemented another toolkit, a sustainable toolkit that time, not just a digital toolkit, which transitioned us to 100% climate positive operations. So not just climate neutral, but climate positive, which means we actually absorb more CO2 through our operations than we emit. And we did that by cutting energy, using smart sensors and technology, running 100% certified renewable energy from the grid, and also planting 10 trees for every reservation we receive in certified reforestation projects in Madagascar and beyond. And that's how we created the first climate-positive hotel in Greece, but also the most technologically advanced one, without losing the luxury element, without losing the human touch. This is all under-the-hood improvements by keeping the genuine touch of the hospitality that you need and that you expect from a hotel. So these two things were the drivers of a major impact on the property. And for me, I think they're the major drivers for the next 10 and 20 years and 30 years in this transition that we expect to happen, as Professor Bogarai was explaining the other day, into a more sustainable and more digital future. And that's why I created Future Hotels. We created Future Hotels because we think that this should be taken to any hotel, anywhere in the world, and should be scaled up. And that's what we do. We help hotels, especially family-run hotels, become digital and decarbonize their operations so they can be more profitable. The key thing here is hotels can be profitable not in spite of being sustainable and in spite of being technologically advanced, but because of being sustainable and because of being advanced. So for us, sustainability and technology are the keys to adding more value to hotel operations, and they are the keys to adding more value to any small, medium enterprise. And if we don't do that, we run a huge risk of extinction. There's huge consolidation in the hotel business in favor of the major brands. Independent hotels are going away, they're being wiped, they don't have the resources, they don't have access to funding, they don't have access to know-how. So if independent hotels do not step up their game, if they do not come together, if we do not create a community of fast-paced, innovative hotels, then we will run the risk of being completely overrun by the big brands. And that's not just for small hotels, that's for every SME out there. If they don't implement technology, if they don't implement sustainability, they risk being left out of the future. So that's what we do, and it's imperative we continue doing so. Hopefully you join us in our mission. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sotiris. Before we move on to Tommy, can I abuse my privilege as the in-person host to ask you a question? You mentioned Future Hotels and how its purpose is to scale up the solutions that you found for your own hotel. At what stage are you at with that? Is it Europe-wide? Is it global? What are your ambitions?
I'm actually going to stand because of feeling. Okay, so actually it's the partner network that we have is very strong in Europe. So we've got partners all the way from Barcelona, all the way to Sweden. We have partners in Germany. So these are the technology partners that help us with our solutions, our digital toolkit that we provide. Now, in terms of clients, the first client that we got when we launched was a client from the Caribbean, which is shocking to me, shocking news. But anything is global these days. So that was our first client was in the Caribbean. And then we have clients all across Europe, from Greece all the way to the UK. For us, it's a journey of finding exactly what appeals most, not just as a trend, but also to the hotelier in terms of what problems they have. So we began with a vision of creating a brand out of it. That was a brand. So you join Future Hotels, we give you the toolkit, we give you the expertise, and you can also call yourself a member of Future Hotels. But slowly, we've realized that we have a lot of clients who just don't want to use the brand, but they want to use our consulting services. So in that case, we are adjusting our services more to cater to that area. But it's clients from all around the world, but the primary network is in Europe, with the exception of a very big partner for us in Hong Kong, which is Portier Technologies. They offer an amazing smartphone solution. So yeah, we are all around the world, and we hope that we continue doing so, and that clients are approaching us for our expertise from everywhere, hopefully.
Fantastic story. Thank you so much. Thank you. Now, Tommy Ilias, CEO of Uptour, can I ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself, your company, and the high-tech innovation that you're also helping to spread around the globe?
Thank you very much. Good, it works. So I will try to present you the same topics from the different point of view. So as a high-tech company, we were always figuring out how the Industry 4.0 technologies can enable tourism. So we are all aware that tourism is about hospitality, good foods, I don't know, wine and etc. And it's about people, of course, but there is a certain layer, and this layer is in the cloud, who seems like have a huge influence on this business, right? So, and this is, exactly, that I'm talking about the huge corporations who are influencing the businesses all over the world, right? And sometimes they are a bit invisible. And what we are, the challenge for us was how to try to, not to fight back, but how to find a way to get more out of our own data, not just to rely on the data which it's in the hands of these huge corporations. So all these corporations are using these key enabling technologies from Industry 4.0. That's why our project is called Tourism 4.0. And we are trying to bring these complex solutions to the small people, to the SMEs, to the businesses around the world using this. Good. So this is a very strong statement. We've been around the world presenting Tourism 4.0 for many years now, and nobody tried to challenge us on this. So tourism can only be sustainable if improves the quality of life of the local community. So we put the local community in the center, right? This is very important to understand what we do. So we developed a tourism impact model, which is a system to accurately measure the impact of tourism. Not only the positive impact, but also the negative impact of tourism. And of course, having in mind all the sustainable development goals from the United Nations, etc., etc. And we really took a holistic approach. Not only economy, how much money we do from the tourism, not only environment, but we really took the approach of all aspects of the life of the local inhabitants. And try to say, tourism is good when it brings lots of good impact on this local people, local community, not just people, right? So imagine doing this assessment, what is the true impact of the tourism in your destination, and doing the all 10,000 data and combined and assessed, and at the end, this destination ends up in one of these 4 quadrants. Of course, all the intelligent destinations would aim to be in between champions, so with a high positive impact of tourism and as small as possible negative impact of tourism. So you do the assessment, you end up in one of these places, and then, of course, with the help of artificial intelligence and data analytics, it shows you where are you heading. So where do you want to go, or where are you going? So in this case, for example, this particular destination deserve a name to be a sustainable champion, because it is a champion and it will remain in this champion quadrant. If the vector would show in other way, it could be another name, of course. So very important here is to get the true data, and this is one of the problems. So we have to have a real data to do the real assessment. If the data is not accurate enough, then of course the results are wrong. So we are focusing a lot on the accuracy of the data and showing what a real data accuracy should be nowadays in a modern world especially in Europe, right? And of course, at the end, you get the report. It's a comprehensive report of 100 and plus pages where you can exactly know what to do next, how to make your tourism strategy, how to develop the tourism strategy in order to get as much as possible from the positive impact and to get a minimum of the negative impact of tourism. If you don't do this, the decision makers will do this from their heart or from their, instant opinion, and you could be very, very, very wrong. And we showed many times how wrong can the perception be regarding to the real data. Okay, for the conclusion, I think Europe has a good chance not to be a follower, but to be a leader in terms of the digitization of the tourism, and to rely on our own sources, not just buy some analytics from across the sea, but if we want to achieve this, we have to change our perception of data. We have to harvest data and especially treat data as a valuable raw material and not as a trash. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tommy, and welcome back to our Zoom friends. I don't know whether you were able to hear us while we were talking. That's great, excellent. So as you know, we had two stories of leadership in the tourism sector, which were very, very inspiring. Now I'm going to hand back to Co, our moderator, so that we can hear our last two speakers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen, for so eloquently taking over. And thanks also to the two speakers who jumped in, even though it was not quite a turn, but we heard most of it and it was very, very good. Well done. Thank you very much. I don't want to say too much because, time. Kirsi Alamutka, can I ask you just probably start back again from the beginning and do your whole talk, please.
Okay. Thank you, Co. And let's try now second time. Let's hope it was not my slides that caused the Zoom session to finish. So I also heard of the previous speakers, most of that, and it sounds like that they were presenting a couple of issues that I will be also mentioning here. I don't seem to be able to change my slides now. Now they are changing. So I will start by saying a couple of words of the past summer season. As you all know, tourism was hit very hard when the pandemic started. So when we are looking at the business confidence indicator, which is shown on this slide, the tourism ecosystem is the red one, and it went right to the bottom of all the industrial ecosystem. It remained there for a long time until ahead of the summer season, it started rising up. It remained high during the summer and has now even got to be on the second place. So on the business confidence, tourism ecosystem is currently on the second place of the 14 different ecosystems. This is just one demonstration of the importance of the previous summer season. It was very important, a lot of expectations were put on it, and it showed a significant recovery. However, it was not enough. It was not going back to the level of 2019, mostly because the recovery was not equal. It was unequal between different countries, destinations, and sectors. But what was clearly positive for all of that was that COVID certificate, the digital COVID certificate, clearly showed its benefits for facilitating traveling again. And it is one of the aspects that is still supporting the tourism ecosystem, showing support for cross-country traveling and also to the hospitality industry and cultural attractions within the countries. So currently 49 countries are already connected to the system, and that includes all the EU member states, of course, and 65% of the European population says that they consider the EU digital COVID certificate as the most safest means for travel. So some recovery is significantly taken place, but it's still difficult to estimate when we are in the full recovery, especially in the view of the recent weeks and the change in numbers again. On the other hand, we know, as already mentioned by the previous speakers, that the tourism will not go back to the way it was. If you look at the Sustainable Travel Report from the Booking.com, it shows that 46% of the travelers, they state that the pandemic has made them decide to travel more sustainably in the future. 61% would choose their accommodation based on the fact that it has implemented sustainability practices. And it's not only about the environmental aspects, they are also interested in the social and cultural aspect, as 65% of the people want to have authentic experiences that are linking to the local culture when they are traveling. These are important examples showing how the tourism demand is changing. Ecotourism will be important in different forms, whether it's walking, hiking, bird watching, agritourism, or simply taking into account the sustainability aspects in the service provision. Authentic tourism is very much searched for in the city and rural destinations. People are building their own personalized packages of traveling, accommodation, services, attractions based on the information they can find and book on the internet. This also facilitates the so-called last-minute tourism, where they may do their reservations only even just a few days before the actual event or traveling taking place. Health tourism was on the rise already before COVID and is expected to keep doing so. And an important group of people to be considered are the aging people. In 2020, over 20% of the European population was 65 years or older. And that is important to consider also for the tourism population and services. Also, we see now more and more longer stays that are facilitated because people can combine remote working and leisure time with their holiday and may becoming even digital nomads. And the COVID time showed very much, again, a rise in the proximity tourism, people traveling within their own countries and in the neighboring countries. The map that I'm showing on the slide shows actually that in this summer in France, the coastal destinations fared better than in 2019. While in the bigger cities, the numbers were still very low, mostly due to the lack of the tourists from outside of Europe. So we are seeing that the tourism demand is changing, and it's highlighting sustainability and the digitalization in its change. So this is one of the reasons why we are now working on a transition pathway for tourism to go towards a greener and more digital tourism ecosystem that would also be more resilient. This has been highlighted by the updated industrial strategy of Europe, so that all the industrial ecosystems would engage with their stakeholders to identify the necessary actions for such a transition. And the tourism ecosystem started this co-creation process first. We want to be able to leverage the recovery for transition that takes into account the trends in the tourism demand and increases the resilience of the ecosystem. By now, we have been developing a staff working document that highlights possible actions and scenarios for the transition. We have implemented a targeted stakeholder consultation with almost 200 responses and 15 stakeholder workshops with over 120 participants. This work is still ongoing, so we will be proposing the transition pathway in the beginning of next year. But for this presentation, I wanted to pick up a couple of examples that would be relevant for the SMEs and the family-run businesses also to consider in their transition. One of the aspects highlighted by the stakeholders and also the previous presentation is the importance of collaborative governance in the destinations. And there is a place where the SMEs would have an important role to play, to be participating in the developing the strategies for the destinations, to be collaborating with the stakeholders in order to develop new services that meet the demands of the changing customers, whether they are visitors or the residents. The SMEs should be investing in better energy efficiency, reducing food waste and packaging, using more local supply chains, to contribute to the environmental objectives, but also to improve their own resource usage. What seems to be quite clear is that web presence is today very important to connect with the customers. However, Currently, for example, in the accommodation sector, in some countries, there are less than 40% of the companies that actually have an actual web presence. It's important to improve accessibility, to expand the group of the customers, and invest in the skills that help to understand the needs and potential of the sustainability and digitalization. So these are just concrete, simple examples that would be very important to be comprehensively implemented as a road towards a more advanced green and digital transition. And there is support and funding for SMEs in order to start working on these changes. The Enterprise Europe Network provides advisory services, even on sustainability. There are several tourism-related clusters available and to be collaborated with in the European Cluster Collaboration Platform. Digital innovation hubs are providing support on digital innovation, digitalization, and digital skills. And several European funding programs also cater for SMEs. For example, COSME program, the competitiveness for enterprises and SMEs, is launching several actions every year that provide concrete direct support for SMEs in the different member states. Also, the national recovery and resilience plans are supporting SMEs, especially in the digitalization and sustainability. And 16 member states have submitted plans that specifically consider tourism in their activities. So this was my quick take on the aspects that are supporting the needs and aspects relating to the transition of the tourism ecosystem. Tourism is still struggling very much with the pandemic, but at the same time, it is important to already look forward and to respond to the changes in the customer demand. And SMEs and family-run businesses have a very important role to play in this. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Kirsti, for this very interesting insight into where we are heading towards with tourism, and also the opportunities that this can bring for small businesses. That brings us to our last speaker, Jesus Casado, Secretary General of European Family Businesses, which is the Federation of 50 national family business associations, but also board member of lots of other family business organizations and networks worldwide. As such, I think there's few people better able to discuss the perspective of small family businesses in the current times, and also with an eye on what it can mean for the future. Then Mr. Casado. So please, the floor is yours. We do not have a PowerPoint, so you can just start speaking. Thank you very much.
Thank you, European Commission, for inviting me to speak now. Well, a few things to complement what the excellent speakers have just said. That we have to be very clear that most of the hospitality organizations in the world are controlled by families. Therefore, the human factor it's crucial in this sector because the warmth of hospitality can only be shared by people, not by robots. That doesn't mean that digitalization and technology is not important, but the human factor in this sector is important. So I'm going to talk about 3 myths about family businesses in general, bearing in mind that most of the hospitality and sector is family business, and then I will focus especially on 5 characteristics that we have analyzed and seen during the pandemic on the hospitality sector in particular. The first myth is that family businesses are always small companies or even medium companies. That's not true. Just to put you an example, we do have, and most of the SMEs in the rural sector in particular are bed and breakfast. That is true. But if you have heard about Marriott, Marriott is a chain, a US chain that is true. It started in 1927 as a 9-stool beer little shop with $6,000. Now it's a 20 billion euro hotel chain with more than 180,000 employees. So first one I want to say is family businesses are not always small. The second thing is that there is a belief that family businesses, because the family is behind them, they're less efficient than large multinationals. Again, that's not true. A recent study by EY analyzing the companies, especially in 5 countries, the 5 bigger countries at the EU level, analyzing the performance between 2015 and 2017, showed very clearly that family companies of all sizes and of different sectors, they, in that period from 2015 to 2017, they created more jobs, they had a better return on investment, they had a much more cash flow growth and a much more turnover growth. So that's the second myth. Family businesses perform better, absolutely, than non-family companies. And the third wrong idea that we have as a perception on family companies is that they last much less than non-family companies. I don't know if you know what is the oldest company in the world. Well, it's in the tourism sector. And it's an old ryokan hoshi based in Japan and was established in 717. So not 700s, 717. So more than 46 generations running this little hotel. That means that family companies are longer than non-family companies, because I will put you an example. I don't know if you know how many of the original Dow Jones companies still exist. The Dow Jones, for your information, was created in 1896. Well, there is only one. So only one company, General Electric, has survived 125 years. And I have plenty of examples around the world, many in Europe, and a lot of them in the tourism sector, over 200, 300, 400 years old. So the last myth is that family companies, they don't last as other companies. But let's focus now on the hospitality sector in particular. Rania Lavaki, top researcher in family companies from EDEC, Family Business Research Center, has made a very in-depth analysis of this sector, and in particular, what are the main characteristics that they have experienced during the pandemic. The first one is that despite the fact of the severe challenges ahead, they have been optimism and acted with determination. And mainly because they have their own experience, or the experience of the family and the values of the family that have in past generations survived the same thing. That gives them self-confidence. A second point I would like to highlight is that they have showed great level of social responsibility. First, with the employees. There are several studies showing that during the pandemic and during the last crisis in 2008, family companies in the rural sector, they have tended to hire more people, and if they have to fire people, they have fired less people than non-family companies. There is always a priority to keep the human factor and to keep the people that really is the essence of this sector. But two, there is a commitment to the community they belong. Plenty of examples that was showed in that study. Let me just give you a couple of examples of donation of meals to hospitals. They have arranged supply of masks and hygienic products. There's always a very commitment to the community that surrounds family companies, because the human factor is there. And again, for them, the socio-emotional wealth is much more important than the financial wealth. There is a study by the top researchers on that issue, Getz and Carlson, that very clearly shows that family businesses in tourism place their personal and family needs ahead of their growth and profit maximization. And a proof of that is that when a family company in the rural sector, in the hospitality sector is created, they always start or take over a family business in this sector. They always prioritize the lifestyle or the localization as a preference over the financial considerations. A third factor, characteristic of the hospitality sector during the pandemic has been the preference for self-financing. We have seen that if they could take cash reserves as a priority, they have done that, And as a second chance, they have followed by bank financing. But preserving the equity has always been a crucial factor for family companies, and this pandemic has shown that in particular in this sector. But fourth characteristic, and more important than that, we have seen an acceleration of business model innovation. New business ventures like Saturis has just shown us have been created to really accommodate what's going on, transforming the business to the new rules, the creation of terraces outdoors, transforming unoccupied storage spaces into restaurant spaces for more social distancing, or looking for new clients, like those who were focused on wealthy clientele, old people. They had to shift to younger clients with less budget, or especially deliver service to older clients. Or looking finally for new communication channels through digitalization, as very well was pointed out later on. And my final point is that the final fifth characteristic that we have seen in this pandemic, in this sector, is that there is more focus on sustainability practices. There is a redefinition of the purpose of the companies, where sustainability is put ahead. And that shows, as I have always said, family businesses are there for the long term. They think in quarters, they think in generations, sorry, not in quarters. And they are social institutions that take care of the community they live in. And with that, I will just finish my speech saying that if we help family business sector in general, we will help the hospitality sector in particular in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jesus. Sorry, thank you very much, Jesus. This was really good to hear like what family businesses really are. Those myths are unfortunately so real. So it's really good to basically exemplify how different reality is and how innovative a lot of these family businesses are. Unfortunately, because we've overrun a little bit again, also due to technical difficulties, really sorry for that. There's no real time for questions. Always very difficult to say that and to have to do that, but we have to stick more or less within the program. So sincere apologies. If you do have urgent questions, I'm certain that the speakers are more than willing, either in the room or digitally, to answer them. If you cannot reach them, you can always email me and I can bring you in touch with them. But I think they're much easy enough to reach by themselves. And they're very open to talk about these things, as you've heard. They're very, well, inspiring, I'd say, that's the word. And I think that's how I also would like to end this. Like we've seen that there's a change coming on now because after COVID, sustainability is more important and we are more communal, currently in our demand of tourism. What we've seen is basically how, the last presentation, how family businesses really are able and suited to this change. This changing demand really suits family businesses. So that's an opportunity. And not only that, we've seen ways of using technology and data to allow family businesses to move beyond where they are now. And what I really liked is that in all presentations, we discussed technology because technology is important, but we also had like, but it's tourism, it's the human factor that's important. And I think if we take that perspective into heart, then this could be a really good opportunity in spite of all the misery that COVID has caused for family businesses to come out of this crisis in a better way and continue to be the innovating force in tourism that it is. Thank you very much to all the speakers and also to everybody who's organized this. Like I said, apologies again for the delays and the issues that we had with technologies. But I think speakers have very much made up for that by the content of what they've said. So thank you all, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you. Now over to Karen.